Join me for reflections on the beautiful heavenly writing of the cosmos and our mysterious place within it. You're listening to Michelle's Midheaven podcast, and I'm your host, Michelle Courvoisier. Greetings, friends of the stars. In this episode, I'm devoting time to the goddess Venus. I'll be getting deeper into what her association with beauty truly means and how that leads to her signification of relationship. And then, of course, I'll talk about her current journey in Aries, where she will station retrograde soon. To bring us straight into Venusian territory, let's consider for a minute how you don't need any calculations or measurements to recognize when someone sings out of tune. The same goes for beauty. You don't need to analyze it or measure it to see if something is pretty or not. You simply see or hear it. Your senses tell you instantly whether something is harmonious or not. And that knowing comes through Venus. It's always a direct, effortless judgment. Something feels good or it doesn't. Something sounds pleasant or it doesn't. It's immediately clear. And spontaneity is key here. This innate spontaneity that we all possess naturally draws us toward the good, the divine source. Because for the ancient Greeks, it was obvious that beauty and goodness were inseparable. Truth itself was beauty. In the Hellenistic tradition, Aphrodite was linked to truth, not in the strict intellectual sense of logic and reason, but through love and beauty. To understand this, let's contrast Aphrodite or Venus with the Sun and Jupiter for a moment, since they were more traditionally associated with the concept of truth in ancient Greek thought. Zeus, or Jupiter, as the ruler of the cosmos, embodied wisdom and divine law, while the Sun illuminated knowledge, clarity, and revelation. Venus, however, reveals a different kind of truth. The truth of harmony, attraction, and relational wisdom is the kind of truth that emerges when musical notes blend into a perfect chord or when colors complement each other on a canvas. In other words, beauty isn't just an external quality, it's something the soul perceives through its own light, when it resonates with what aligns with the eternal Platonic forms. And I'm following the Greek principle here, the idea that like knows like. So to truly know something, you must have something within you that corresponds to it. When you find something or someone beautiful, it's because that beauty already exists within you. In that moment of recognition, you aren't just witnessing beauty, you're connecting with the divine spark inside yourself. And this is exactly why the attraction to beauty is really at its core an attraction to the divine. This Venusian attraction pulls us towards something higher, something true, not through analysis or reasoning, but through a deep instinctive knowing. Maybe the well-known phrase, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, should be reworked and say something like, beauty is revealed in the eye of the beholder if the beholder has eyes to see. And this brings me to a first insight I want to share with you, and that's that the more beauty you bring into this world, the easier it will be to connect with the divine. And the ancients knew that. For ancient people, beauty wasn't just the result of skillful craft or a product, something to admire from a distance. Instead, it was an active, living force woven into their rituals, beliefs, and daily practices. It had meaning, a purpose beyond aesthetics, because it was a way of aligning with nature and the divine, and it was about cultivating a life or an environment in accordance with higher principles. Buildings weren't merely functional spaces. They were designed to reflect the divine cosmic order and sacred proportion. I think this is why Venus is exalted in Pisces. Jupiter, the ruler of Pisces, represents that cosmic order. Remember, Jupiter was called the greater benefic, And I feel that Venus, the lesser benefic, has more to do with the physical manifestation as she belongs to the nocturnal sect. Venus then expresses Jupiter's cosmic order in our physical realm through the beauty that she brings into our world. Clothing, jewelry, and everyday objects, and even their daily bread in ancient times, that was all crafted and designed with so much care. It went much further than decoration. It was to invoke protection, favor of the gods, and meaning. Music, poetry, and dance were not just entertainment. They were more like sacred expressions that meant to elevate the soul. For example, Plato's work Symposium discusses Aphrodite in relation to love. Love in the sense of eros, as a path to truth. The idea, again, is that through beauty and desire, the soul is drawn upward, lifted upward toward the highest forms of reality, the realm of ideas. And of course, if we contrast our history with our modern experience of beauty, and I'm overgeneralizing here in order to make a point, nowadays beauty is often more passive and externalized. Modern people tend to consume beauty by scrolling past it on screens, by viewing it in galleries, or by purchasing beauty in the form of products, rather than actively participating in its creation or embedding it into daily life. It's interesting how beauty is almost seen as a luxury or an indulgence nowadays, rather than an essential everyday part of existence. Somehow, along the way, beauty got separated from ethics, function from form, and spirituality from aesthetics. But in the past, these were inseparable. I think it's good to remember Venus as a creative force. There's so much beauty in the actual activity, the process of creation itself. And not only is there beauty, but creation can be a ritual that invokes the divine. So sprinkling the gifts of Venus over everything you do in your daily life is automatically inviting higher meaning into your life. When we actively bring beauty into the world, we're aligning with something eternal, a part of the divine flow. It makes the act of creation, or simply the appreciation of beauty, an offering. It's a way to honor life itself. So if you want to spend time with Venus as she's about to turn retrograde, think of what you can do in your life to bring back the magic of actively creating and appreciating beauty in your world. Now, our perception of the right proportions is crucial. And when we talk about proportions, we're always talking about the way in which two or more things relate to one another. Whether we're talking about the proportions in a painting, the harmony between musical notes, or even the way colors complement each other, it all comes down to relationships. And this is exactly why Venus is associated with relationships. She governs all forms of harmony between people, between sounds, between shapes and forms. Wherever there is balance, attraction, or a sense of things fitting together in just the right way, Venus is at work. Love begins with the magnetic pull of attraction, whether physical, emotional, or intellectual. There's an initial spark, the recognition of something familiar or a deeper connection. But it's not necessarily a conscious recognition of common traits. It's more about a sense of rightness when two people come together. In contrast to Jupiter, who likes to unite people who are alike, Venus prefers to bring together people who are different. Venusian balance is not about equality or sameness. She's here to bring out the best in contrasting energies. Love is a relationship of complementary opposites. They're not equal, but they're balanced in their contrast. Let's keep in mind that true love, like true beauty, often emerges through imperfection and difference. Think of how symmetry in art is often associated with a kind of balance or harmony. But if we make something asymmetrical using the right proportions, we're adding a dynamic energy, a uniqueness that feels more alive and real. Think of how even the most beautiful faces don't have perfect symmetry. If we make a face symmetrical, it often looks quite scary, actually. Imperfection feels more authentic and soulful, more real, or more connected to life itself with all its complexity and unpredictability. And in the same way, love itself is a process of continual discovery, where we honor differences and see the divine in each other. Now, Venus is located in the sign of Aries at the moment, and this is the sign ruled by Mars, who is a domicile ruler, and the Sun, who is the exaltation ruler of Aries. Through their joint rulership, Mars and the Sun have an affinity, and they have some things in common. For example, the Sun and Mars are both very selective. At its core, the principle of selectiveness isn't just about judgment in a superficial sense. It's about having a refined sense of what resonates with your inner truth. It's about recognizing what aligns or doesn't align with your personal goals, your desires, and well-being. Now, the Sun and Mars are really good at filtering through the noise of the external world and distinguishing what feels essential. They both possess the focus to do so. So now when we think of Venus visiting Aries, she's going to be less inclined to establish harmony willy-nilly. She's going to want to cooperate with her rulers by being way more selective before she joins two people or does something creative. You can already feel how this placement might have its pros and cons. Venus's clarity of self in Aries guides her choices, and that makes her less likely to settle for things that do not resonate with her values or vision of fulfillment. Her instincts are more focused on the things that might harm her. So the need for self-protection is amplified here. One of the questions that might come up is when to engage and when to pull back. During Venus's journey through Aries, we may become more aware of any social situations that could potentially drain our martial energy or misalign with our deeper solar purpose. Venus will station retrograde at 10 degrees of Aries on March 1st or March 2nd, depending on where you live. And usually one or more things could come up around that time, patterns or situations that you have encountered in the past. That's typical for retrograde phases. We revisit something from the past, and this time, because Venus is stationing in Aries, we're invited to be selective when something comes up. It often happens that certain people we know from way back when cross our path once again when Venus goes retrograde. What do our martial instincts say? We need to be discerning in order to avoid repeating mistakes or becoming entangled in situations that don't align with what's truly valuable. Mars will do his best to help, but keep in mind that Mars is currently in the sign of Cancer, where Mars is said to be fallen. So Mars may not be in the best position to help. I think Venus will do much better when relying on her exaltation ruler, the Sun. And that's actually what I see happening sometimes in my practice. When a domicile ruler is debilitated, the exaltation ruler sometimes grabs the wheel. The Sun is currently in Pisces, gradually moving closer to Saturn, so sticking to what we find purposeful is going to be crucial. Those are just a few initial thoughts on the Venus retrograde period that's coming up, but I'll definitely talk or write about it more because this phase will last until mid-April. So subscribe to my newsletter if you want to keep your finger on the planetary pulse. I started a weekly brief and applicable forecast on Substack Chat for my paid subscribers. It's called the Stars Choreography, where I will be offering ways to actively cultivate your relationship with the divine realm by syncing your step with the stars. Please always join me on social media through my website, michellesmidheaven.com, because there are fake accounts out there. Thank you so much for listening. Be well, be a star. Until next time.